All right, here's another page of criticism. Again, some of which will be helpful, some of which completely not helpful for my purposes. This is by Edward Snow, and it's from the University of Chicago Press. I got it on JSTOR. It's an article on Sonnet 138 called Two Loves Have I of Comfort and Despair, and then it's like some thoughts on 138. So this is just a page from this 15 or so page article, and it begins, strangely, with Othello. If the student has read Othello, that might be interesting. If the student hasn't read Othello, we look. And what's really important is don't get discouraged when you're confused. Criticism is not written for teenagers. It's not written for high school teachers. It's written for scholars and professors. So when we read criticism as amateurs, again, I'm driving this point home, we look for those moments that are helpful to our understanding. So let's see this Othello moment. I think thou dost, and for I know thou art full of love and honesty. For Michael Cassio, I dare be sworn, I think he is honest. I think so too. So even if I've never read this play, I can tell that what Snow is pointing out in a Shakespeare play is that just like in his sonnets, Shakespeare is manipulating individual words in a variety of ways, and that happens to be the focus of my paper. I don't know if I'm going to use it, but anyway, I notice it. Yet the speaker of the sonnet resides comfortably in a language that destroys Othello's faith. His paradoxes convey not confusion, but an almost Montaignian lucidity and composure. No high school student is going to know what that means. So you move on. If it's not helpful, you move on. The discoveries upon which all of Shakespeare's tragic protagonists come to grief, the opacity of the self, the otherness of others, hang in there, the absence of immediate relation. These are the things this author, Snow, says is the problem of Shakespeare's tragic characters. The self being opaque, others being really distant, and a lack of sort of real relationships. Okay, fine. That kind of makes sense in light of Sonnet 138. And let's see where he goes. So here we have two of the lines that I know I'm going to be talking about. And notice what's nice here. What's really nice here is that Snow breaks this down into couplets. So here I know that I've written about these two lines, so let's see what Snow says. Again, the language expresses an ambivalence while giving the feel of having resolved it. Simply can mean naively or foolishly, and it parallels vainly in line 5, but also straightforwardly, candidly, absolutely, etc. Without reserve, in which case simply I credit will be heard to parallel and clarify I do believe in line 2. Now, I've already talked about this. So this is one of those times where a scholar corroborates or supports a thought I have. And when an expert says that you're right as a writer, that you're saying something that is establishing a real connection, that gives you credibility. Similarly, the simple truth can be suppressed in favor of either multiple lies, which I've talked a lot about, or a more complex truth. That might be worth thinking about. Okay, contradictory perspectives are acknowledged, yet tonally, it's the positive meanings that achieve priority. So this is Snow going out on a limb. I don't know if I agree with him. I don't know if I agree that this double meaning and play with language ultimately leads to a positive meaning, but we'll see. The feel of the line conveys not cynicism, not inner division, but an ethically invested clarity. So it's a clarity of meaning that has to do with the character of the people talking. Again, I might have to think about that sentence more. I don't know. So what else do we have down here? The affirmative thrust of the line becomes characteristically more emphatic in comparison to the 1599 version. That's just the other version of the sonnets. Don't have to worry about it. I'm not writing about it. In I smiling credit her false-speaking tongue, the speaker is cut off from the mistress. Okay, so then he's talking about the other edition of sonnets. Again, scholars writing for scholars. But I'm noticing down here in the world of Hamlet and Othello, it's evoked. Intentionality is hidden behind its actions. Okay, it's interesting to me. I'm not going to talk about it. It's just interesting. So here, Wendler's helped in the previous slide, and here I have some stuff on the top of this page that I'm probably not going to use with Othello and with Montaigne. But here, this chunk here, which closely analyzes the language of two lines from the sonnet, can be really, really helpful. in that it sort of supports some of what I'm saying, giving me credibility, and then later write some things that I can either agree with or disagree with. And I think it's super important that as a reader, even a high school reader and a high school writer, you're not obligated to agree with anyone, the teacher or a scholar. You can have a different reading provided that it's based on the text itself.